Here we are. Hi, I'm Jack Kelleher, and this is the Bike Circus. And this is our brief introduction to the world of assistive cycling, or assistive devices and cycling. I'm hoping that I'll reach one or two people who might want to take advantage of what we do here. My experience has been that wheel devices made for people with disabilities and limitations are very, very expensive. And unless you're fortunate enough to have that kind of money or some backing for it, effectively you don't have access to mobility. And since we started the Bike Circus here, I don't know, a few years ago, we've noticed a kind of a steady pattern of people coming in wanting assistance in crafting their own mobility device. And some of these are simple and some of them are complex. We can't always help them. But the difference is that if it's your mobility device, then we can help you put it together, and we don't have to charge you for that service. We provide it without charge for people who are interested in gaining greater mobility. Now, what that may mean is some assistance in locating appropriate mobility devices, or it may mean assistance in how to power those devices, or it may be just a shared interest in how we can do this. Some of the things we have done have been to power bicycles, various configurations of bicycles, including a bicycle powered by hand with a hand crank. There are various high-end bicycles that may be appropriate for power, and we can help with that. But where we start, and one of the first things to look at, is that maybe just a device that's on the market but you hadn't thought of would be appropriate for you. For instance, I'm touching with my left hand an electric scooter that was donated to us. And this has a power electric motor, disc brakes, and a saddle. And it's designed so that you can sit and motor up a sidewalk. Now, these things are strictly outlaw in the European Union. There's no agreement among EU member states as to what to do with electric scooters. And they've gotten a lot of bad press because young people get on them and hurt themselves or hurt others. And so if you mention an electric scooter in private conversation, you're probably going to hear some terrible stories about them. But if you go to some countries, they permit scooters with saddles like this for people who have disabilities and are trying to meet their disability. So if you have a problem with walking but not a problem with balancing, this might be just the thing for you. And then they're available over the counter. They're powerful enough to take you up hills, but basically if you regulate your speed, that you can just go along with the pedestrian traffic without objection, and it solves a mobility problem very easily. And these scooters, now I'm thinking you can get them for 300 euros, thereabouts. They all have a little too much power. This one has disc brakes, which is quite an amenity on a powered thing. But I would guess that this is about a 300 euro item. If you buy it from us, or it's by donation, so it wouldn't have to be quite that much to get the scooter. Other things we can do is we can put electric power on a bike like this. We have one in the yard, but we put electric motors on these kind of bikes. And again, who that would help is someone who has a problem with mobility but doesn't have a problem with balance. As you can tell, all of these things really have to do with coming in and talking to us. And the better the dialogue between us and you, the better we can do for you in terms of trying to find mobility for you. Another mobility device is one I've been working on lately, and that's this electric trike. This tricycle is something you can just sit on. This is my friend, our friend, Evie Nevin. She's a candidate for public office. We're not taking a political position, but it's nice to know we have a candidate for public office who cares for us enough to drop by. And what we're talking about today is assistive cycling. And I'm trying to convince Evie that she's a candidate for assistive cycling, because what we were looking at before she popped in was this electric powered trike, which is a product we created pretty much here from bits that we purchased and that were around. It looks like it was it looks like it was created in a factory, but actually the front forks, one of the things we put on this bike, just to be more detailed, is spring forks for the front, and that means it's more able to handle the potholes that there aren't many of, but there are alleged to be a few potholes around Clonakilty.
Just a few.
And on a trike, you can't avoid them. Anyhow, a trike is a kind of assistive device. It's not legally recognized as such, but it's really very handy. And this particular electric trike will run, and that it makes it an outlaw trike. This will run on full power. You don't have to pedal at all if you don't want to.
Oh.
If you're able to pedal, it's better because you use less battery. But it's elegant in that it can be used with full power. So, for instance, when it's me going up a hill in town, I tend to give it full power. Now, where's my libretto? Excuse me, I'm going to walk behind you. What made all this possible and assistive cycling possible was a revolution that actually started in the 1970s. There were bike-powered units called chicken power, which were little two-stroke engines you put on the front and had a friction drive on the front wheel. And those were not terribly successful because they were very loud, and a bicycle with power on the front wheel has a kind of tendency to dive into the ground, and that discouraged people from them. But they got something started, and in 1994, it's funny you think this is a China story, but it's not. In 1994, California became the first place to offer electric bike assistance. ZAP, Zero Air Pollution Industries, founded in Northern California, I think, developed a little motor that fit right here. And I had one of them, a little friction motor, and it had an on and an off switch. So you were either full power and steaming along or no power, but it was a lot of fun. And with that came, as developments of that, controlled power. If you've ever been in a house where it has an electric dimmer switches, that's how a controller works, is like a dimmer switch. And if you lower the power, the bike goes slowly. You raise it, it goes faster. Well, that's essentially all that has happened since 1994, is they've developed these dimmer switches to put on bicycles so that they go at a more modulated speed, or a U-modulated speed. Everything else remains pretty much the same. Do you have anything you want to say, Evie? I'm doing all the talking.
Sure. So I'm Evie Nevin, candidate in the upcoming local elections. I think infrastructure for cycling and active travel is really, really important, and it's something that people are really calling for from their candidates and from the council. There's a lot of people who would love to give up their cars and use their bikes more. the infrastructure, as I said, it's just not there. People don't feel safe at the moment. So one thing I would love to do, should I be elected on June 7th, is to advocate for better active travel around the constituency, particularly out in Shidani, so people can cycle out there and enjoy all the splendour that's out there in the island, and for people to be able to walk and cycle safely to work, and particularly as well for children who should be able to cycle safely to school.
Thank you. And of course, that line of priorities is exactly aligned with that of the bike circus. What we're trying to do here, we're pitching for everyday cycling for everyday people. And what we need in Clonakilty in particular are places to have recreational cycling where you're not feeling like a hunted species. And with assistive cycling, that's particularly important because you've got someone who's using their bicycle to get around. It's part of their way of having freedom of mobility. And if you say, fine, you can do that, but only on Tuesday, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It has to be a way that one can travel any day, any time. My personal goal is to see you able to walk or use a wheelchair or use a bicycle, use any assistive device from, say, the GAA to Model Railway Village. Mm-hmm. And in that corridor, right now, if you tried to walk that, or you'd find yourself dodging traffic to get across streets. Yeah. You find yourself with no access to sidewalk or sidewalk that just disappears. And all of that, it's big master planning stuff, but it has to happen. And it has to happen for the benefit of of all of us, but in particular poignancy for people who need assistive devices for mobility, because you can't just say, well, citizens can go to the Model Railway Village, but if you happen to be a citizen who wants to go there on foot or in a wheelchair, well, okay, well, good luck.
Yeah, it's very difficult to be a disabled person in West Cork. So much of it is inaccessible, as you said, footpaths that kind of lead to nowhere, lack of ramps, and exactly as you said, kind of lanes to safely get from A to B. And there's so many of us who are actually unable to drive, maybe because of medications we're on and things like that. So we do depend on bikes and using our wheelchairs to get to A to B. So that infrastructure is incredibly important, as you said.
With one exception, I want to really encourage people, if you're interested in mobility devices, before you pay a lot of money for one that won't meet your needs, you should come down and chat with us about that. We like the new generation of electric motors. We're beginning to get a knowledge of how they work, and we can help you build something that'll get you from one point of town to another, and hopefully get you there comfortably and freely. Anyhow, our mantra is keep on biking, and we want you to get on biking, so come on board. You've got friends down here. Thank you.